Hi, I'm Leroy Hurt, uh, administrator for Nordic Walking Groups on Facebook. And I'm pleased to have Carla Fogaren here. She started and has been running the Nordic Walking Groups in the Cape Cod area, and they've been enjoying phenomenal success. So I invited her to join me on Zoom and start and tell us about it, because somewhere out there is somebody who wants to get a Nordic Walking Group started, and hopefully this will give you all some ideas for it. Carla, thank you for joining us. Could you introduce yourself a little with a little more detail, and maybe how you first got interested in Nordic walking, and then move on to what motivated you to start that group at Cape Cod?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me. Leroy and I got to meet. He and his wife came down to the Cape and went on a couple of our walks. So it was wonderful. So my background is that I'm a registered nurse, but I really was more in the administration side, where I had oversight over 42 hospitals in 11 states. To give you an idea of the amount of stress that job required. And in during COVID in March of 2020, after having lost a couple of my employees, I really just needed to get out of my head. And I found this wonderful group run by a woman named Xenia, which was called South Shore United Nordic Walking. And we were 8 people walking in the woods with masks on in March of 2020, because we didn't know what we didn't know. But it was a nice, cozy group. Xenia is got a full heart, and she's a wonderful person. And then in 2022, I decided to leave that job, and I have a home on the Cape. And I said to her, I'm thinking of starting a group down there. And she said, go for it. Spread the love of Nordic walking. So I did. So I put out on Facebook, looking for 5 or 10 people that might be interested in doing Nordic walking, because I really didn't know the Cape as well as I should, and I didn't want to walk by myself necessarily into unknown territory. Not like the Cape is the wilderness or anything, but still. And immediately the reaction I got was crazy. And then I got a call from the Cape Cod Times, and you know how they call to do a cold sale on subscription. And I try to be kind to people that do those types of call, but it was a reporter called Curious George, Eric Williams. He's an avid hiker. He explores every part of the Cape, and then he writes about it. And he interviewed us. On the day that the article came out, we got 455 new members. And he kept saying to me, Carla, you have no idea how much the Cape needs this. And I said, Eric, it's walking. It's just walking. And he said, you have no idea. Mark my words. And he was right. It just steadfastly grew from there. And it got me really nervous, Leroy, really nervous, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do now, right? So I hosted my first walk, and I had 12 people sign up. And none of them had poles, Leroy. None of them had poles. So I ended up going to the Ace hardware store, and the snow sticks, the things that you put in your yard. Well, maybe you guys don't know it in Alabama, but I had them drill a hole, and I tied a ribbon to it so that they could actually simulate the Nordic walking. So my husband uses it for our tomato plants now. But the reality is that's how the group started. All 12 of those people, the original 12, are still active, and several of them have stepped into leadership positions. So the group started growing, and I started hosting, asking people, do you know this trail? And then people would step up, and then we'd show up at a trail, and then all of a sudden I had 28 people. 20 of them had their poles still in plastic. So I'm like, oh no, now I got to spend the time adjusting them, sizing them, and not even giving them the benefit of showing them how to walk, right? So it became apparent to me that we needed to have an instructional clinic, and I needed to be certified. So I got my certification as a Nordic instructor, very much like you do. And I started doing instructional clinics that were required before you were allowed to go on any of our walks. That way, by the time you stepped on the trail, you had a concept of what needed to be done, your poles were adjusted, and you could do it safely. So that's basically how we started. And the rest of it just kind of grew organically. You had asked me how I got people to lead these walks. We call them hosts. We have 28 of them, and we're recruiting more. And these are folks that are trained by us that go out, they lead the walks, they take the people out, and yes, they bring them all back. That was a requirement. And then we said, oh my goodness, it would be helpful if we had a sweep, which is somebody that brings up the rear to make sure that the pace is good. Do they have to communicate that somebody just tripped over a root? Is somebody going off the beaten path to take a picture and doesn't make it back to the group? So we ended up with, in 2023, creating a class of 26, I think, sweeps. And we just graduated another 24 sweeps. So now we have about almost 50 sweeps in addition. So, you know, it grew organically. However, then we became a 501c3 because people were like, well, what's the cost for this? You know, pulling out their wallets. And I'm like, there's no charge. And that was like, really? Like, almost like, what's the catch, right? But we needed some funding because, as you know, there is cost related to having enough poles for the clinics, the flyers that we created, the ID badges. We have ID badges so that your name's on it and emergency contact numbers on the back. All of that costs money. So we became a 501c3, established a board. Couldn't do it without Sue Moynihan and Brenda Brown, who are on my board and are also the admins for the group, for the Facebook group. And we started getting some funding. We got a couple of grants. People started making donations. I mean, we're a very small nonprofit, but nonetheless, it's given us what we've needed to be able to continue to grow. You're on mute, Leroy.
How many people would you say are in the group now? Because that's pretty exciting news.
Well, there's about 2,800 people in the group, but in full disclosure, and you find that I tend to be that way. I used to call these folks, not all of them participate. I used to call them Nordic warriors, but I was told that that didn't sound quite right. So now I call them Nordic enthusiasts. So about 1,800 to 1,900 are active. And then the rest either just joined or they're kind of like sitting in the background watching this unfold, and they haven't had the courage yet to step up and show up, you know? So we have about 1,850 active members, and then we have always that little bubble of people that come in when they're ready. So it's been very exciting. We probably average about 25 new members a week. So the growth is still going. We're not seeing it slowing down. And I think, again, one of the reasons why, I mean, you know, I refrain from charging, you know, though I know lots of people do and have to. But the reality is when I was doing my clinics and, you know, I'd have poles that people could borrow. And I'd see somebody that I knew loved it, but wasn't like, couldn't get poles. And I would have conversations with people and they'd say, I just don't have the money right now. And we were talking poles that were between $22 at Ocean State Job Lot, or maybe $35 for Trail Buddies at the time that we were using, you know, because we started just using what we had. And I said, well, I have some extras that I can donate to you. People are very proud, Leroy. They didn't want that. My husband was mortified. He'd come to the house and underneath the front mat, there'd be envelopes with $5, $4, Ziploc bags. And he says, just give people the poles. And I'm like, they don't want that. They want to buy them. So I just realized that, you know, we've got to always keep in mind that not everybody can afford things. And that how do we make it so that we're inclusive and that folks can partake in the natural beauty that should be free to everyone, and do it safely, right? So I think that attracts people. They like that sense of community. They like the sense that there's no hidden agenda. You know, you're not trying to get $100 from me or $200 from me or $500 now and 200 later. It's just come when you can and you'll be welcomed.
That's when you talked about the polls, I think you said that you had a relationship with York Nordic, which is a great pole supplier.
Absolutely do. Yeah. So let me talk to you about the poles. I mean, when I started walking in 2020, I used regular trekking poles, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And even when I started the group down the Cape, you can use those and still have the Nordic technique where you're pushing down on the strap. But you and I both know that that's not as ideal as the Nordic grip, right? As the actual glove poles. And it was all because of you, Leroy, that you had such generosity of spirit that you connected me with Lauren from Nordic. And it's been an incredible relationship. I called her up one day to ask her if she would give me a 5% discount because our group was growing. And she said no. And I said, okay. She said, I'll do better than that. This is remarkable. I will create a pole that's a Cape Cod pole. So she has a Cape Cod beach scene on our poles. She gives them the 5% discount if they put CCNW in as a code. And she gives us a little bit of a return on it so that it became passive income for us to be able to do the things that we need to do. So, and she sends these poles out like in 2 days. There's no shipping costs. She stands behind her poles. Our members have been really, really thrilled with the poles. So again, thank you for that introduction. It certainly has paid off for us.
Yeah, York Nordic's a great company. Their poles are the primary ones that I use for having not only for my training poles, but also for any that I might be selling on site. And because they're great for the budget conscious person as well, but yet they still have some really advanced designs that make Nordic walking real easy to do.
And as you know, I had a lady show up that 15 years ago, she had gotten these poles, and we do a lot at the Council on Aging. And I could see that these poles were way too high for her. And I tried to adjust them. Well, guess what? They were not adjustable because they were custom made poles that she spent then $500 for. And as we age, what happened? We shrink. So, it had been 15 years and she was well in her 70s. And she goes, oh, I knew I should have used them sooner. And I said, well, here's a reasonable alternative, But we have people showing up with their poles. If they show up with their poles and we can make it work for them and adjust it, we just go with it. We always have them try the York Nordic poles. We also, there are other great companies out there too, like Nordics, etc. But when they try it and they try the glove, they understand and they get to try it for free at the clinics, right? So they don't have to invest in it and say, I don't like it. So it's been a really great partnership, and it's given people such stability. As we age, sometimes that happens. And you're literally turning somebody from a two-legged animal into a four-legged animal because you've got
Right.
4 points of contact at all times, right? So it's been great. Really have enjoyed. I use them all the time, my poles. I actually am going hiking in Yosemite for 3 weeks, California. And I was like, okay, I'm not even questioning it. I'm bringing my Nordic poles. I'm not going to bring trekking poles because I'm used to the ones I have. So
Good. The and the nice thing about it is that the poles are generally the only additional investment you need to enjoy Nordic walking. Otherwise, you just dress for the weather and the conditions and get out and do it.
absolutely, you can do it just by stepping outside of your house, or you can drive, which costs gas, but nonetheless, you can do it anywhere. You can do it, as you know, in nursing homes. As long as
Yeah.
you use the rubber tips, right? So you
Right.
don't ruin the floors. You can do it anywhere. And, they travel well. I got Lauren's travel poles, that fold up yay small.
Right.
And it's a great option, but my regular poles fit into my suitcase, when they collapse. So I travel with them. And, you just have to check the airlines. You can't bring them on the plane unless
Right.
you have a medical condition. And you should have a note because they can confiscate it right at the thing. But if you're going to check in a bag, check in your poles with the bag.
Yeah. What is it about? Is it the area, or is it the activity that, or what is a factor that you think led to the really huge growth in Nordic walking in your area?
I think COVID had a lot to do with most things in this country and in the world, right? I think that people truly had a much deeper appreciation about how fragile life is in general, right? And that you really have to take advantage of every moment. And a lot of people had couch bodies. Literally, they didn't move for a period of 18 months, right? With COVID, you couldn't go anywhere. Some of the trails were even shut down at the onset, which I couldn't figure out, right? So I think it's about that. When we first started doing this, we would say, just let's do introductions, your first name, the town you live in, and why you joined. So I was expecting, Carla, porridge pour, exercise, blah, blah, blah. What we got was very different. We got exercise, we got exploring the Cape, but the resounding thing that we got was I lost my spouse. I don't know anybody. My neighbors have moved. My kids are in other states. I'm lonely. Or I just moved to the Cape from Denver and I know no one. And then COVID hit. So I think that the power of the polls is an amazing thing. It gets people out there, but we've kept the introductions to the town because as you're standing in a group of 15 and somebody says, Harwich, 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 well, we're in Harwich. I'm on this street, well, you're only 2 streets away from me. And what that does is create a nice little community within our community so that they can walk on their own outside of our group walks. And the friendships that have been formed are genuine friendships for myself and for members of the group. So I think, again, the Cape leads to it because it's one of the most beautiful places, as you know, and you only got a glimpse of it. The climate, you would think, would not lead to it, right? Because we've got some cold winters, we've got ice, we've got snow, we've got all that. But we walk all year long, all year long. We've had to cancel because of, downpours of rain or storms and stuff. But in all honesty, we go out unless it's icy. We don't like certain conditions because it's not safe, as you know. We're big into safety. But I think it's just the fact that it's free, the fact that the community spirit is alive and well. You can feel it. It's like a pulse. And the fact that these people live right next to the National Seashore, but have never gone into these trails to see some of the most unexplored areas that people don't typically get to.
What are some other things that you all do before, during, and after the walks to foster community among the walkers?
So, we're on Facebook, and Facebook is considered by many as the root of all evil and needs to be immediately destroyed. And for me, I had never been on Facebook ever. So it was a great learning curve. And people seem to be hesitant to sometimes join social media platforms. But I will tell you, we are a private group. We don't even post pictures outside of our private group because we have people who are survivors of abuse. We certainly don't want their stalkers or anything to find them. And it's a private group. So we're very, very strict upon that. If you want to post the sunset or something about the scenery, you can post that anywhere, but not of members. I think that is a big thing. The other thing is that, we always post our walks. We have to cap them because if we didn't cap them, we'd have 150 people on each walk. That's impossible on the Cape because of parking. I mean, it's just not possible. And we also want to be good stewards of the environment, right? We don't want 150 people making holes and trespassing all over these woods, stepping on plants, etc. So we are a leave no trace principled group. We get permits from the National Seashore. We do about 20 walks on the National Seashore that we have to get permits. Some of the towns require permits, and we have to stick to that amount of people. That's been the most challenging thing, is people sometimes can't get into walks because of supply and demand. Some of the things that we do is just build the community, the sense of community on Facebook. We post things about the Native American tribes down here. We post things about events that are like the solar eclipse. We had 4 walks going on simultaneously all throughout the Cape for the solar eclipse. It was wonderful. And then afterwards we had appetizers, and we were able to just sit and commune with each other. We do all sorts of different events. We have events at like a Marathon Sports where they give our members 15% discount. And if you know what the cost of sneakers are nowadays, that's a good savings, right? They fit them, they close down the store, they just cater to the members themselves.
Yeah.
We sometimes go off Cape. We go to the islands, to the, now we have 3 islands we're going to. We go to Martha's Vineyard, we go to Nantucket. We're actually going to head over to Martha's Vineyard to do some instruction. And in October, 100 of us are going to the Azores, which is part of Portugal, for a Nordic walking adventure. So, it's just that kind of like building upon it. People love to take pictures of the beauty that they see. They post it in Facebook. So we do stretching before we go on our walks, right? And then we review some of the safety things. So there's a lot of great information that people gather from being part of the group that is health related, evidence-based. Remember, I'm a nurse. Once a nurse, always a nurse. So, when I'm able to say, this is good for your health, but if I'm able to prove to a diabetic that it actually can cut your A1C, or that it improves the pain that you're having in your legs. We had a vascular group invite us to speak to their patients that have something called claudication, which it's pain upon walking. And the doctor came out and he said, 50% of you will not feel any pain if you stop walking, especially like this. 25% of you will feel a remarkable improvement, and 25% it won't help. But wouldn't you like to be in control of what you can do? So, the healthcare community here on the Cape has really embraced this. They keep sending us people. We actually have a partnership now with the VNA that they're doing an 8-week Nordic life wellness series where they take 8 people with 2 physical therapists, both are instructors and part of my group, and they take him for half a mile to a mile. They'll work on whether you're recovering from a knee, if you have Parkinson's, whatever your issue may be at the time. And then when you graduate, you just come into my group and you're able to continue the walking. Sometimes we do the reverse. We have members that are going through post-op hip knee, whatever it is, and we refer them back to the VNA so that they can have this really one-on-one type of, Nordic experience.
Good. Thinking about the management and logistics of growth, what were some challenges that you faced when you were trying to manage the growth of this group?
The biggest challenge was supply and demand. I mean, honestly, I can't get in. Literally, I posted my Eclipse walk, and within 3 minutes, for 22 people, it was full. It goes. And we do, during the winter, 60 to 70 walks a month. And during the summer, 100 walks a month. And, from the bridge of the Cape all the way to P-Town, and it doesn't matter how many, it seems like people are really eager to get in. Some of the people that say they can't get in all honesty, when I talk to them, and I talk to each and every one of them, they work 6 days a week, and, they're off Cape. And so it's more that the timing of the walks doesn't meet their schedule. We still have walks that go out with spaces. And most of that is because people either cancel late or they're no-shows. And we've had a remarkable decrease in the no-shows because people feel a personal responsibility at taking somebody's spot and then not showing up, right? But the late cancellations, life happens. Your daughter calls you because the grandchild's sick and now you have to go babysit. There's things that happen. Your car doesn't work, or you just wake up not feeling well. So we understand that, but we really struggle with that. The other thing is that Facebook is not meant for this. This is, Facebook is not meant for this type of group activity. We have to cap our walks, Leroy, like to 12, but the post has to sit there and watch. As soon as it hits the 12th person, they put up a close sign. Well, that doesn't always make a difference because 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th person just keeps going. And we can't start a walk in some cases that are permitted if we go over the amount. So that's gotten better, but we have great news. We just probably very soon, by the fall, we will have a fully interactive website. that two of our volunteers, Mark Paradis and Catherine Epsey, God bless them, have done for us. So they've created a website that will actually cap it at 12 or whatever the number is, and then create a wait list and put 5 people on a wait list. If somebody has a late cancellation, you immediately get a text, Leroy, and you have like 15 minutes to say yes or no, because it could be 3 hours before the walk. And in some cases, you have to drive an hour to get to the walk. So we're really looking forward to that. It has a great search function. You can color code. You can do Upper Cape, Outer Cape. You can say within 5 miles of me. It gives you the maps for the walks, etc. It's really got lots of bells and whistles. So what you may not know is, we have a board, and then we made all of our hosts and sweeps our advisory council. Because let's face it, they're the ones that make this group successful, right? Without them, we could not do this. So we just had our advisory council meeting last Thursday. We had 65 out of the 70 people show up for a 3-hour meeting. I'm talking commitment. So that's when we looked the operational things. We talked about all the safety. There's 2 big safety things, winter and summer. We're focusing on heat exhaustion. And then Mark and Catherine were able to give us an overview of hopefully the upcoming website. So now we're going to get some trainers and some testers. And then we have to do a communication plan to all of our members of how this is going to change, right? So there's always a lot of work to do. But if it wasn't fun, Leroy, I would not be doing this. I didn't stop working at a stressful job. And I still work, consult 30 hours a week to take on something else that was stressful. This is very rewarding. It has, its challenges. I'll be quite frank with you. You can't decide to do something like this unless you're going to have the time to do it, and the people that will support you.
What you a little while ago, you mentioned that when people came out for a group, there were usually some folks who discovered during the introductions that they might have lived, that they might be living in the same town or, pretty close to each other. What's your sense of these people getting together on their own and walking as a group where they live?
All the time. And you know how I know? Because they post pictures on their own Facebook page all the time. Good. They Chatham, for instance, all the time. Howard, all the time. And the other thing is, our hosts will sometimes go scouting new walks, right? Because you've got to find new walks. We've been to 179 different locations on the Cape. So if you had asked me when I started this, I would have said maybe 40 trails. I had no idea. 179 different locations. So our hosts are always scouting walks, and then people will go with them, because we also have some walks that are a little bit more advanced and a little longer, but they have beautiful, beautiful rewards, views. So what we try now to do is, how can we make this walk for the person who's a slower walker, who's not an advanced walker, right? Can they still do it? It's 4 miles. Yes, they can, if it's advertised correctly, if we go slower with more frequent stops and longer, right? So it's all of this thinking, critical thinking skills that have to go in on it. But I have to tell you, my husband took me out to lunch to a local restaurant, and we got there, or it was like almost dinner, and there's a group of like 5 or 6, and I said, "Oh, hi guys." It was all people from my group. So I walked on over and I said, "Hey, I'm just curious, were you guys friends before you joined the group?" And they said no. They were on a way to see a show together, but they grabbed early dinner before that. This is what we're seeing. We had one member that was on the phone with somebody. She fell down her stairs, like literally slipped, fell down the stairs. That other member, like driving and pulls into the house and is able to help her. We've had members that are going through some rough times, and all of a sudden people are dropping off food for them, or saying, "Hey, what do you need? What can I do for you?" So that's what I mean about the sense of community. There's nothing expected, yet so much is given.
Good. Somewhere out there, in fact, probably a lot of somewheres out there. Somebody wants to get a group going. Uh, if you think back through what you've shared so far and your other thoughts, what kind of advice would you have for people as they're thinking about it, as they're, connecting with other folks, getting started, managing it? But what kind of advice do you have?
My first advice, and I think I got some of this from you, Leroy, is become an expert. Know what it is. Don't just get certified. I mean, I'm constantly reading, and thankfully for me, I can read in a couple of languages, which really opens up some of the articles that I can read from our colleagues and friends in South America, or that are doing Nordic walking. Read. Search for articles. Put up Google alerts like I do with the word Nordic walking in it, and you'd be amazed as to, how many things of interest that you can put into use. If you are going to charge or not charge for it, you still have to have liability insurance. Don't let something that you're doing out of the kindness of your heart be something that ends up biting you in some way. Make sure you have liability insurance, so that God forbid something happens. Even with liability forms, it's, people can sign it, but what ends up happening is it's the legal fees that you get stuck with, right? We've been very, very fortunate because we have very minor incidents, like somebody trips over a root, bee sting, a scrape, or whatever. We have a whole safety protocol where we fill out an incident report. It's submitted to me, the host fills it out, and then I have to call the person within 48 hours to check on them, which they're usually mortified. Oh my God, it was silly. I just tripped. I bounced right back up. But they really do appreciate that wellness check, right? Just to make sure that everything's okay. Surround yourself with a group that will support you, other people, because doing it by yourself is hard. It's difficult because you don't know how much it's going to grow. I had no idea how much this was going to grow. And have fun with it. Don't, have fun with it. Be out there, do the walking. At one point, I was doing so much of the admin stuff, right, that I was really missing out on walks. Plus, I told you I still work, consult 20 to 30 hours a week. So I have made it my conscious effort that I am going to go on walks with each of my hosts so I can support them, but just selfishly because I want to go on their walks because they're fabulous. And then I also host walks and I still do the clinics. And I love doing the informational sessions at all of the Council on Aging. We have a school here for young adults with some cognitive issues and some disabilities. And we were approached by them. Out of 110 students, 90 of them learned how to Nordic walk. And now they go out twice a week on field trips. And as the teacher told me, these are kids that don't get picked on teams, right? Now they have their own team. If that doesn't make you feel good, right? If getting to a senior center and having someone say, oh my, this 92-year-old, I will never forget, thank God you're here. Those of us, we may be old, but we don't want to use sticks. But now you've made it an athletic thing. So now we're going to use the sticks. It's just amazing how we meet people. We have people as young as 20 in our group and as old as 94. And when I say as old as 94, that 94-year-old you'd never guess. And she is a walker. And, great posture. And that's what most people are interested in, is because as we age, we go forward, is the posture that Nordic walking does for us, right? And then it's muscle memory. So anyway, you can see that I get excited about it, but it's just an easy sell for me because it's just so rewarding to do. So listen to podcasts like this or to Zooms. I found a podcast the other day just by chance. And I was like, a podcast? Oh, this is great. So as I'm doing mindless driving, I'm listening, instead of the radio, I'm listening to podcasts on the subject. I got myself certified in with Parkinson's because I'm asked to do talks and demos at Parkinson's support groups. Now, as you and I both know, sometimes, the technique, you can't have somebody who's maybe in an advanced stage of Parkinson's lean forward too far because they were already leaning forward. So you have to make some modifications, right? And before we started, I said 20% of these folks will never learn the true technique. Never. Was in Boston, they say never, ever. Okay. But the reality is, who cares? Are they still walking the same beach with you? Yes. Are they still socializing? Yes. Are they still moving for extremity? Yes. Are they watching the same sunset? Then who cares? You know, those that can get it and that want to work on it do. And those that struggle a little bit, they do the best they can, and they're always welcome in the group.
Yeah, that's an important point. What I tell the people that I coach is that the real key, once we cut through it all, is that they're using the poles to just push themselves forward, push against the ground, so that it involves the upper body, and we can figure out technique and continue to work on it over time. But that is the important part, is that they're giving themselves that push with the poles, just like a cross country skier. And
Absolutely.
and then
You're a fast walker. I'm a fast walker just naturally. Well, I walk a lot faster like this. I mean, I
yeah,
really do. And with all of the tips that they give you, the rubber tips, like little tips, there's so much that you can do for adjustments. And for me, it's like, can I walk a 16 to 17-minute mile? Yes, I can. Do I look like I enjoy it? No, I don't. I enjoy going at a decent pace, but being able to look at what is surrounding me, you know? But there are people in my group that love the advanced walks or the cardio walks with very few stops at a real fast clip, but it's advertised that way. So if they ever saw me on a fast cardio in Truro for 8 miles on the Truro Beach dunes, they obviously will realize that I by accident hit going. Okay. Can I do it? Yes. Would I enjoy it? Probably not. So you got to find what works for you. We've had people that could barely walk a half a mile out of their car. We would do the cranberry bog so that they always be close to their car, barely, maybe a quarter of a mile. Those same people, one became a host and sometimes does 2 walks a day and is up to 3 to 4 miles. So again, it's about the stamina, right? It's about losing weight. In some cases, it's increasing your muscle tone. And it's just increasing, to me, that motivation of getting me to do something. I belong to a fitness center, a gym. My husband's there now. I don't even break into a sweat, Leroy. I just like go through the motions, but I'm people watching. It's not for me. I like the outdoors. If you were to tell me you're going to walk 5 miles right now, I'd say on purpose. Why? Right? But when you're walking 5 miles in the wooded trails or on the marshes of Cape Cod or wherever you are, because there's beauty everywhere, it doesn't feel like exercise. It doesn't feel like 5 miles. And then when you have other people with you that are saying, oh, that's not an osprey. That is a whatever. Or this is this plant. You're learning all sorts of things. I'll come home and my husband calls me Cliff Clavin from Cheers, for those of us that watched it. Yeah, all the useless facts, he says. I'd come home and I said, honey, did you know that the frost fish is a type of codfish? Like all of these things that I didn't know, that now I have gained some knowledge. And I find historical stuff and things like that very interesting. So it's fun, but give it a lot of thought. It's not for the weak of heart, as you and I both know, Leroy. And sometimes to me, I would say to you, if you're thinking of doing this, don't do it yet if you haven't joined a group. Participate first as a member. Try to see what you think works well and what doesn't. And of course, not that I'm volunteering you, Leroy, but I'm certainly available if you ever wanted to reach out to me and ask me a specific question offline. Our email is Cape Cod Nordic Walking at Gmail, so people can reach out if they'd like to.
great. And I'm sure that there will be people around who'll be interested in getting a little bit more information from you. One of the big goals, of course, is to expand Nordic walking, get people to to get out and do it, especially with groups. And hopefully this will inspire some folks to get out and start something.
And you and I talked about the fact that one of my wishes would be, let's all come together at a location and just take the place by storm, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see that be the Cape, where we could literally walk from the bridge all the way to P-Town in different groups, right? You're not going to walk the whole mileage, but or Alabama or wherever it is. Is there an opportunity? Lauren and I talked about it from North York, York Nordic. Is there an opportunity for like a retreat? Where we could come together. Those of us that lead the groups could break out, and those that just have a passion for Nordic walking could actually join organized walks in whatever area there is, and have some fun with it. So people do it for biking, running, all sorts of other sports, right? We should do something like that as well.
Sounds great. And
Yep.
this has sparked some ideas as well, because I do have a Nordic walking retreat coming up in May. And I have some speakers and lots of in-depth coaching and things like that. So, and I did retreats in previous years as well. And we got people, good attendance, and we got some really great speakers, as well as some coaching. And we had companies who helped with the sponsorship as well. So
That is fantastic. I'm leaving May 16th for California for 3 weeks, but keep me in mind for the next one, because I mean, to me, it's like it's a continuing education thing, but it's
yeah,
fun, right?
sounds good.
And if you ever want to do anything up in the Northeast, I mean, we've got within like 30 minutes, we've got the South Shore United Walking Group with Xenia, and we've got us. And a lot of our members cross over. Like some of my members are hers, and some of her members are mine. She tends to stay on that side of the bridge of the South Shore, and we stay on this side, but not because it's territorial, just because it kind of works. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But and then I think there's a small group in Rhode Island, and there's one in Western Mass that's just starting up. So but yeah, I mean, doing things virtually is great to learn things, but there's nothing like being in person, in my opinion, as long as it's not during COVID. But anyway, I really appreciate you doing all this, because I could tell from the moment I met you. And by the way, we still do the egg beater stretch that you taught
Do
us.
you?
Oh yeah, we love that. I mean, so if you ever come back up here, we're going to have to do a little bit more of an extended visit. But yeah, the stretching is so important. Wouldn't you agree that people are driving for an hour to get there, then they're stiff, because I get stiff just sitting, and then you need to stretch. But equally important for me is to stretch after the cool down, only because then you're getting back in that car and driving an hour. So those are the things that we could learn from each other, what the best practices are.
Good. Well, that sounds great. And it certainly gives me a lot of food for thought myself. And I think anybody who watches this is going to have something to think about, and hopefully motivate them to get something started in their area.
Yep, absolutely.
Carla, thanks very much for taking time to do this, and looking forward to continuing to talk with you, and we're always going to keep looking at ways at what you all are doing there, because there's a lot to learn from you guys.
Well, and there's a lot to learn from you. So it's collaborating, right? But hopefully I'll see you on the trail soon.
Good.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you.